All right, well, we just saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and it was amazing. And the way this show works is we will tell you what we thought of the movie, whether we liked it or not, who we think might also enjoy it or not, and then not get into any spoilers right away, but just sort of give you a general overview, and then we'll call a timeout, and if you want to go see the movie, go see it. And you can do that without giving any spoilers or having us ruin any details of it. But if you have seen the movie, or if it doesn't sound like something you're interested in, you want to hear more about what we thought, you can watch the rest of the video. Speaking for me, I liked this movie. It wasn't the greatest superhero movie I've ever seen, but it is a substantial improvement over the first one. And it's probably... It's up there with the best of the Sam Raimi trilogy. It feels like a 2014 superhero movie. It feels like a post-Iron Man Spider-Man movie where Iron Man sort of... I think that to me felt like the evolution of superhero movies. This feels like it's finally caught up. They didn't have to bother with all the origin story crap that they had to do in the first one, and so we kind of hit the ground running, and we got to get a new story and enjoy these characters a bit more than we did in the first one. So it's a little on the long side, and oddly enough, like. It looks like it's setting itself up to have the same problem as Spider-Man 3, where there's too many villains, there's too many cast members. But it actually does a really good job of balancing it, where there's only a couple of them that are really important, and the rest are just sort of candy. They're just sort of there to spice things up a little bit. So you don't feel like, the Sandman and Venom and whoever else is in Spider-Man 3, you don't feel like there's 20 different villains going on at the same time. They managed to keep that fairly, keep those balls in the air without it feeling like, there's 4 different things he's doing all at once. So that's my long, brief overview of the...
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a lot. I kind of wish I would have rewatched the first Amazing Spider-Man at this point just to kind of refresh my memory, because I really at this point don't remember as much about it, and that could have just been because it didn't have as much of an impact. But I feel like this was definitely an improvement in a lot of ways. I think they did a lot of Spider-Man things right, like things I expect with a Spider-Man movie should be in there, were in there. There'll probably be some spoilers with that later.
Yeah.
I felt like, one good thing that some directors don't always do real well with superhero movies is kind of keeping it grounded with people being human as well, like even Spider-Man's human side, and I think they did a good job having that. And like Dale said, yeah, one of my biggest worries going into the movie was like, man, look at all these villains you're seeing in the trailers. I was really worried about, character bloat, and now they handled it much better than I was expecting, so that was good. So hopefully they'll, assuming they make another one, then hopefully they can keep up that pattern and not just throw that many more superheroes. But yeah, definitely overall, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. I also thought it was great entertainment. The crowd loved it as well. It was a bit long, but I felt like there was so much content packed in there. It is long, but it's not boring. There's just so many. They hit all the right action beats, and the character stuff is. I didn't enjoy the first one too much, but this one, I really enjoyed the struggle, what was going on. So yeah, hats off. I really enjoyed it.
So that's our basic overview of the movie. Definitely go out and check this out if you have any. If you think you might like it, go see it. It's great. We saw it in IMAX 3D. I would actually recommend seeing it that way. I think the detail, especially the IMAX, is really helpful. Some of the shots are pretty far away from Spider-Man, and that's a cool thing to see in IMAX. On a smaller screen, he'd kind of look like a speck in some of the faraway shots. So now's the time to stop watching if you're going to go see the movie. So getting into spoilers a little bit and digging in a little bit more, The thing that really bothered me the most about the first movie was the lizard himself. I didn't like the design of him. I didn't like the way he looked. I didn't like how they treated his character. He was not ever frightening or scary. He was just a lizard guy, and they showed you him in like enough detail that you could tell at all times, your eyes were telling you the whole time, this is a computer. This is a computer. I'm not looking at a real thing. I got sort of that sense from Electro in this, the design of Electro in this, but they did a good job of keeping him in the dark. And those sort of glowy effects that they used on him did a good job of masking the fact that he wasn't really there. I also liked that while Electro is a fairly big part of the action in the movie, and his character has, the traditional villain arc of, being a guy that's down on his luck and he turns into a supervillain guy and he gets defeated by Spider-Man. For having that arc, I mean, it worked really well. He's not even close to the most important thing in this movie. Harry Osborn is also sort of off to the side a little bit. Like they talk about him, they kind of retcon him in a little bit, I felt like that whole, we used to hang out 8 years ago. Yeah. That they never talked about in the first movie or touched on. There's a little bit of at the beginning, they do replay a couple of scenes from the first one of his father and that kind of stuff. And they uncover a bit more of the mystery of what happened to his dad and those sorts of things. Paul Giamatti is barely in this. He's in 2 scenes, which I liked that too. I thought that was a cool way to have an extra villain in there and not have it be, a super high stakes kind of thing, but still have it be something that's a match for Spider-Man. The big emotional moments in this movie, one of the things I really didn't like about the Tobey Maguire performance or the Tobey Maguire series, especially the third one, is that Spider-Man just cries for the entire last hour of Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, it was really emo.
And he cries a lot in this movie too, but I feel like it's more realistic. Yeah. He's not just like a crybaby.
He's a teenager going through...
I mean, he's dealing with hard stuff, and I mean, for me, the most emotional scene in the movie was the scene with him and Aunt May when he told her that she's enough.
Yeah, that was really
of a parent for him. That was like really and there's a sadder moment in the movie. I mean, as far as the plot of the movie goes,
we can spoil that, right?
We can spoil that.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
As we were watching that, so spoiler here, as you know, but Gwen Stacy
dies.
Actually does die, and my eyes were getting ready to roll, and I was getting ready to be like, oh, come on.
And
if there's one thing I hate is fake death scenes in movies to get an emotional reaction out of you. I hate that. But it wasn't. It was real, and I thought, wow, okay. It took me a while to register that was going to be a real plot thing. So that was really actually kind of cool because I didn't expect that.
So they recreated that scene. Actually happens in the Spider-Man comic. It's slightly different. It doesn't happen in that stupid freaking cliched clock tower thing that they ended up in at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, did they bring in Tim Burton for this one scene? Like, why is this happening
with
now?
gears and everything in the middle of a high-tech
next to the
power
giant high-tech open-air power plant thing, which is my second least favorite. That's the second worst scene in the movie is when they're fighting in that thing.
No, you know what? I have to say what my first number one least favorite thing about the movie was the completely unnecessary plane crash thing. Like,
oh my god, yes.
Like, there was no point.
That was tacked on to give that sense
because it was
triumphant thing at the end.
But there's not even like real emotional impact to that because Spider-Man has no control over what's going on at that point. Like, he doesn't know about it, so there's nothing he can do about it.
Saved him.
But he inadvertently saves him.
Well,
it was
so
tacked on.
So you can have a movie where a guy goes, "Woo! All right, guys, back to work. Let's land some planes."
Yeah, it was. Well, not only that, but they show these planes like coming at one another. And I'm not an air traffic controller, so they order one to go one way and they order the other one to go another way. Okay, but why wouldn't you go vertical? Like, because this caused them to have to make like a
and
ridiculous.
Speaking of planes,
It was just-
the
it was too
opening
much.
scene.
Yeah,
The opening scene where they're uploading the video from the plane while fighting in a shaky cam, and
yeah.
he reconnects it to an Ethernet
To an
cable,
Ethernet cable.
and then he somehow starts it again after that, and
Well, he had like a buffer. Yeah, that was weird.
Just to create tension. It's all MacGuffin stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
it was. But that plane thing at the
it
end
was-
just killed me.
there were a lot of things in this movie that are ridiculous, but they're fun ridiculous.
Yeah,
They're not,
Yeah.
like the guy, the blue guy, like the Doc Manhattan thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little silly. Him, you know, but
Yeah.
and
Everything
also how
about
he,
him was
how he
silly.
became
Absolutely.
Electro was ridiculous. Like,
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
so am I missing something?
But
He
to be
literally
fair-
electrocuted himself and fell into a pool of electric
eels.
barracuda or
Well,
something.
it, you know,
Which you
it
get-
was supposed to be like a biological electrical experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, I can buy that as much as a radioactive spider if it
But you
comes
do
down to
have
it.
like CGI giant electric eel face in your screen,
Yeah,
like
that was
on
a
the
little-
screen in the IMAX. So the movie does not take itself that seriously,
which is
Fortunately,
which is
yeah.
great.
Which is okay for
and
especially
it,
for Spider-Man.
It takes itself seriously when it needs to. Like I said, with
Yeah, there's
the
some
Aunt May thing, they deal with Gwen Stacy's death really well.
Oh, can I say something about that? Is there's an amazing scene I think when because at this point I still don't think she's dead. It's gonna be Harry or it's gonna be someone else or it's gonna be that Electro guy. Finally getting noticed. Anyway, when Peter Parker stands there and then it goes through a couple of seasons and he's now in the
Yeah.
cold and he's still visiting the grave and stuff. I thought that was so well done and a
It
great
was.
way to just push the movie on in time a little bit.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, and it was really subtle at first because like it shows him sitting there, and you can see the fresh dirt, and then the camera angle changes a little bit, and you see him still sitting there, but the season change isn't really
Yeah.
obvious, but the dirt's not really there anymore, so you're kind of catching on.
well, he's in like street clothes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's really subtle, and then the next thing you know, it's like now there's snow on the ground, so it's obvious this is. And they later reveal it's been like 5 or 6 months or whatever. But
Yeah, I thought that was very well done.
Yeah, he
yeah,
goes
well-
from like being in a jacket and tie to being like in street clothes, and then he's like, it's snowing on it. There's a lot of Spider-Man in the graveyard scenes in the first trilogy, in the original trilogy as well. A lot of the endings of the Raimi movies end up is Peter Parker standing at a grave somewhere and someone talking to him. But I felt like it worked in this, and I'm sure that those are beats from the comic that they're bringing back.
Yeah.
I started to mention that the Gwen Stacy thing is it's one of the most famous panels from Spider-Man of all time. There's an actual shot, or there's a page of her death, and what happens is very similar in that he tries to save her with the web, but he stops her from hitting the ground, but the whiplash
breaks her spine probably.
breaks her back and her neck and kills her. And he does
She's
the
just
thing where he's
hanging
like
there.
trying to like get her to breathe, get her to wake
Yeah.
up, and she's just gone. Which, if they hadn't killed her, that would have bothered me. At that point, by the time they got that far into
You
it,
knew it was coming.
I knew it was. I knew they were gonna at least make it look like that was going to happen. Like Cal said, it to me it felt like it was going to be a fake out, and then it wasn't. And I was really appreciative that it wasn't a fake out. It also retroactively fixes one of the things I didn't like about the first movie, which is I felt like they didn't need to kill Captain Stacy, Gwen Stacy's dad. I felt like Dennis Leary's character, I felt like they should have kept him alive. I think I know that might not be the way it really goes in the story, but I would rather have Dennis Leary in the movie than not, and he's there
Instead of a couple of hallucinations.
Yeah, I'd rather have him like cracking wise and
Yeah, because he could be a fun.
breaking Peter Parker's balls and that kind of thing.
Sure. I was gonna say another thing I wanted to talk about, and me and Kyle were sort of talking about it before we got in the car. Is I liked the way the movie did his spidey senses. The way there was a couple of scenes, right? Like there was a couple of times, especially in the beginning, where it was really subtle, like where he's in the middle of trying to stop these bad guys, and then tick. He realizes something else bad's gonna happen, so he has to go save some random bystander. But I think one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie is right after Electro first comes out, and there's that ridiculous like stair platform to nowhere
In Times Square.
in Times Square, which that's probably a real thing actually.
It is actually. I've been.
And there's so there's this whole scene where he's like flying towards it, and it goes into like this slow motion sequence, and he's like his spidey senses kick in, and he knows what's gonna happen.
Kind of like
That
that
was
really
cool.
timey kind of
That
thing.
was the whole like the way it was coordinated and the way it was like shot and edited, like it was really cool. And I felt like even other points in the movie where they brought his spidey senses in, it was interesting.
Yeah, I felt like that scene was really well executed.
Yeah,
and it
because
was really interesting.
Yeah, because it just shows like that was a good way to just. I mean, everybody's like, oh, he's got spidey senses, but like that really like put a button on it that like I mean, this is like it's like serious stuff he does with his spidey senses.
And I liked that action scene as an action scene better than the climax scene, the last fight.
Right.
I liked
Which got the video game Infamous.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about the whole
Well,
time.
yeah.
the
so much.
Times Square fight felt very much like Infamous.
Yeah, totally.
All of the electricity and pulling electricity out of the ground
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. So I thought it was cool. It's obviously there were a lot of hints for Doc Ock to be in the next one. We got like an extra scene tagged in there from the next X-Men movie,
which felt.
Days of Future Past, I think it's called.
Yeah.
With Mystique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they showed us the scene we got was Mystique.
Most
scene.
of Mystique and a couple other X-Men
the
in there.
Jennifer Lawrence Mystique, because they're going back in time, setting Wolverine back in time. So, yeah, I recommend it. I think it's a good movie. It's definitely it's more memorable than the first one, but I do feel like it's a movie that tomorrow I'm gonna like remember 2 or 3 things about it, and
Sure.
eventually it's just gonna fade away, just because there's so much action in it, there's so much going on, and while it's it's sad that they kill Gwen Stacy, and it's also good that it's true to the story of the original comic that it's like that.
I was gonna say because I guess that allows it to open up for him to go to college and meet MJ, basically, right?
Well, she was supposed to be in this movie, and
I wondered. I was half expecting to see.
they pulled her out. I think people were irritated that they were like obviously setting her up so that
Yeah.
you know who he's going to end up with after Gwen Stacy dies.
Well, I'm glad they did that then, because like at the end that would have taken away the scene from with the boy,
Absolutely.
which was like Spider-Man's got something beyond just
I think it works. I think
that was pretty cool.
I think that it works, and I think that that him figuring out that that he can still be Spider-Man, and that it's important for him to still be Spider-Man, even without her, is a cool way to end the movie. And
Still
there's
guiding him through her speech.
yeah,
Totally.
and there's obviously more story here, and
Yeah. One thing I'm assuming would be more obvious if I knew more about Spider-Man lore, but the shadowy figure at the end, Fierce.
Mr. Fierce.
Yeah, that's not the character I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I'm not as up on most of Marvel actually, but I don't know much about Spider-Man outside of this. Honestly, the Sam Raimi movies are the most that I've seen of Spider-Man. The most I've really kept up with it. I know some of the other characters. I know that I think. I'm just going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to try. But basically, they were setting it up for Doc Ock and
Yeah.
Rhino, and there was some other suit there that I'm not sure who that was supposed to be, but obviously the new Goblin will be back,
Yeah.
kind of running things. I think there's a group of supervillains in Spider-Man that
I can see that,
that
yeah.
they're forming.
Sure.
And it's probably leading up to, my guess is that what they'll do in the next Spider-Man movie is they will like bring in another hero to have him team up with. They'll bring in, I don't know necessarily who it'll be, but
Who they have the license for.
yeah.
That's the complication with that, isn't it?
But I mean, if they're showing
Wolverine.
X-Men stuff, like it could be Wolverine.
I was gonna say because I know Wolverine and Spidey kind of team up from time to time. So
it could be a Wolverine cameo,
Like a short stint, yeah.
or a couple of the X-Men come in and help him out, and it just kind of makes sense from a timing perspective, and that they're showing they're kind of teasing X-Men stuff at the end of the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, that felt really odd.
Yeah.
I mean, I get
Scene
it.
just came
I
out
get
of
it's the
nowhere.
same student. I had the same studio or whatever, but I was expecting an end credit scene that might have been Spider-Man related, not.
Yeah, and people, I know people ask the question all the time with with what they're doing with the Avengers and all of the movies that are associated with that, if it would be better if Spider-Man and the X-Men were part of Disney. So that they could merge all of that stuff together, and I honestly like it this way. I like
not too
it.
bad.
I like it where
Yeah.
there's another studio that's
Yeah.
taking care of Spider-Man.
I mean, there's a couple places where it gets ridiculous because they're so protective of their property, like the whole thing where they can't. There's those two new characters that are going to be like in the next Avengers movie or whatever that they foreshadowed at the end of Captain America.
Yeah.
And like they can't even call them by their names because they're mutants, and they can't call them mutants because of the way that kind of stuff is kind of dumb. Like that's just the way that intellectual property works. But
it is.
I agree. Like keeping some kind of division and stuff, that's not totally a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a good way to balance out the quality control. I mean, you could definitely get into a path where they suddenly have like 4 really bad Marvel movies in a row, and I don't see that happening with it divided up the way it is right now. The Avengers is going to keep going for
and they've got more than enough with just the Avengers too.
lots of years, and I think there'll be at least one more Amazing Spider-Man movie. My guess is that Andrew Garfield will want to move on after another movie or so. I don't think he's going to want to play Spider-Man for years and years to come. Tobey Maguire did want to do Spider-Man 4, and they were supposed to do a Spider-Man 4, but it fell apart. They ended up rebooting it to hold on to the franchise. So, anyway, that's our review. Hope you enjoyed that, and please check out the rest of our video reviews. You can find them on YouTube and also at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.